Once the flow of constant new money slows, the Fed's scheme is exposed. Previously hot businesses fold and people lose their jobs. This is a depression. And it lasts until the malinvested business assets are sold and the laid off people find new employment in non-hot balloon malinvested industries, ones with actual production. At that point, the correction is complete. However, since most voters are unable to explain why the economy is slowing, political pressure on the Fed mounts to do something in the face of rising unemployment. But doing nothing in this case is in fact the only prudent move, because what has been built on the back of malinvested new dollars is not real. It is fake. Therefore, it is unsustainable, just like Ponzi and Madoff's schemes. But of course, no matter who is Fed chairman, we know nothing is the one thing that the Fed will not do. Historically, the Fed officials panic and prematurely stop the shakeout of the Depression, selling assets and people getting new productive jobs, by reinflating and restarting malinvestment programs like quantitative easing. This is what's called a recession, a depression that is cut short and reinflated. But as Richard Mayberry says, any injection big enough to avert a depression will lead to runaway inflation. While Wikipedia accurately describes Ponzi as a swindler and a con artist, here's its opening on the Fed. The Federal Reserve System is the central banking system of the United States. It was created on December 23, 1913, with the enactment of the Federal Reserve Act in response to a series of financial panics, particularly the Panic of 1907 that showed the need for central control of the monetary system if crises are to be avoided. In its opening for the Fed and Ponzi, Wikipedia illustrates the mainstream view perfectly, which is individuals counterfeiting money and lending out money that they don't have is destructive, immoral, and criminal. But when the Federal Reserve prints money out of thin air without increasing its gold reserves, it is not only moral, it is vital to our very economic survival. And we don't call it counterfeiting when the Fed does it. No, we call it monetary policy. And of course, this view has massive support in academia, such as John Maynard Keynes and noted Yale professor Irving Fisher. See, in the 1920s, Fisher and his acolytes believed the new Federal Reserve systems would put an end to the days of booms, busts, recessions, depressions, and corrections via price stability. Again, the theory goes, as long as prices remain stable or moving ever so gradually higher over time, then businesses will never need to close, people will remain employed, and we'll all sing Kumbaya. In their view, the Fed can accomplish price stability by gradually inflating the money supply into a Goldilocks zone that is neither too hot nor too cold. If the balloon gets too full, inflation, you let some of the pressure out by raising rates and reducing the money supply. But once again, this is a tightrope walk for the Fed. In the process of tightening money supply, when you let some air out of the balloon, some people will lose their jobs. Again, that's a depression. But as we know, the Fisherites and Keynesians did not foresee the Great Depression, nor did the Fed do anything to prevent it. The past 100 plus years of booms and busts in this country shows they were wrong about price stability. In fact, in a free market with a currency without manipulation, prices tend to drop over time as productivity increases and mass markets develop for new products that are in demand. We can see this play out quite clearly in the relatively unhampered technology market. Televisions, for instance, today compared to the past have much bigger and clearer screens. They use far less energy, and they weigh practically nothing compared to those enormous wooden cabinets we used to lug inside of our houses. And the weight isn't a small matter. For most of us, it's the difference between carrying the TV out of the store and putting it in your trunk, or paying extra to have multiple men in a truck deliver it to your house. Delivery is not free, and the fact that most of us don't need TV delivery is a great unseen benefit. We can spend our money elsewhere. Contrast that with the obsession with gradually rising prices. Once again, for emphasis, you and I do not receive checks from the Fed, so we know that new money is not distributed equally. The late receivers of new money are the most hurt. For example, young people enter the workforce are quite clearly the late receivers of money. When professional golf is on TV, you'll notice each player has a caddy. That person's job is to carry the bag, clean the clubs, assist with club selection, and occasionally accept deflected blame when the player screws the pooch.
So you're telling me that's the right yard?
Wait a minute. Hey, you hit it, bud.
Now, I don't care if you care about golf or not. I barely care either. But the point is, if every player on the PGA Tour has a caddy, caddies must be helpful and in demand. One of my father's first jobs was as a caddy at Blue Hills Country Club in Kansas City. Well, I called down to Blue Hills recently, and sure enough, they don't offer caddies anymore. Only places like Pebble Beach, where it costs $500 to play 18 holes, even offer caddies for an extra $80 fee. And despite this obvious demand for caddies, obviously very few exist. They have been artificially priced out of the market via money supply inflation, and quite frankly, the minimum wage as well, which is a price control. Most caddies played for low wages with the hopes of making tips, not unlike restaurant servers. Now, perhaps you think I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm not accounting for the proliferation of golf carts as a way to explain the dearth of caddies. Well, it's funny you should mention golf carts because my first job was also at a local golf course. But I wasn't lucky enough to caddy and possibly get a big tip from a drunken gambler. No, I primarily washed and maintained the golf carts. It was a good starter job for a kid with limited skills like myself, and I worked there in high school for 2 years. Recently, I played with my mom at the old course, and I noticed that there were 0 cart boys on duty. When I worked there, we'd have 2 or 3 working during a busy day. But on this day, from what I could tell, the young guy working the front desk would occasionally saunter down the clubhouse steps and haphazardly spray down some carts. The result? Fewer jobs, dirtier carts, an occasionally vacant front desk, and an overall slightly worse experience for the customer. Once again, I'm struggling to see who wins in this scenario. And if this trend continues, the front desk guy will eventually be replaced by an automatic kiosk. Fast food joints are already experimenting with kiosks. How many more entry-level jobs is the Fed going to destroy in the name of price stability? The late receivers of money need to start their professional lives, and the sooner the better. We're all low-skilled at first, and we can't start off as the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Finally, while I've emphasized the current United States Federal Reserve System, America's pre-Fed history has many other instances of massive monetary chicanery, notably by the Union to fund the Civil War with those greenbacks. And indeed, world history and modern policy are fraught with the same expansionist mentality and the same disastrous results. Examples are numerous. The fall of the Roman Empire, the Weimar Republic's collapse, Venezuela's current hyperinflation, and perhaps the best visual example today is China's ghost cities. These cities, without people in them, are truly modern monuments to malinvestment gone wrong and the absolute necessity of free price discovery to suss out supply and demand with the proper signals. So with that, let's call it a day. I'm done. Hey, we did it. All right. Woo, okay. That last part was really long and it was really hard for me to write. So thank you very much for your patience. And And with that, we've got one part left where I'll just wrap it up with some final thoughts and just bring the whole thing together with a conclusion. Right up next.